So today let's talk about the iPhone 13 and how it's aged, because it's now available from Apple for $599 or £599 here in the UK, and is of course even cheaper on the used and refurbished market. And so should you still consider buying this? Well, let's talk about it. Beginning with the design, this feels very similar to newer iPhone models with the flat sides and the aluminium and glass builds. Really, the only thing that feels dated are the slightly thicker bezels and the notch, though this really depends on whether you've interacted with the new devices. If you haven't, you're going to be completely fine with how this phone looks, especially compared to something like the iPhone XR with its absolutely chonk bezels. This is a much nicer design, and to be honest, I quickly forgot about the notch. And by the way, would like to remind you guys, like this video and subscribe for more content like this, it would be appreciated. Now I should mention, much like newer iPhones, this has ceramic shield on the front, which offers excellent shatter resistance, but literally the air can manage to scratch it. And trust me, this is coming from someone who was brave enough to use the iPhone 12 caseless, so if you buy any new iPhone, just slap a screen protector on it immediately. I've left a link below to my recommendations. iPhone 13 also comes in some terrific colors. Whilst I have the basic midnight here, which is a bit boring, the phone thankfully does come in starlight, blue, red, green, and pink. Of course, colors are subjective at the end of the day, but I do prefer the much more saturated shades this phone has compared to the pastel shades iPhone 15 has. Now, of course, I do admit the matte finish on the back of the 15 is much nicer, but considering most are going to use a case with their new iPhone anyways, the glossy finish is a non-issue. The phone also supports IP68, so if you somehow drop this in the toilet one day, you should be completely fine. Moving on to the actual display, this offers a lot of the specs you find on newer models. The only thing it lacks is brightness, because while it's fine indoors, it can struggle outdoors with only 800 nits of brightness, but barring that, this is an OLED display, so of course, colors are vibrant, it has great viewing angles, the contrast ratio is excellent, it's 6.1 inches, which I feel is just right for most consumers. That sounds a bit dodgy out of context, but anyways, yeah, I really have nothing to complain about. It's a solid display. And I know some might be put off by the fact it's 60Hz, but let's be honest, only nerds care about this. As someone with a 120Hz iPhone, going back to the 13 was a non-issue, and because iOS is so fluid, you likely won't pick up on this stuttering in my opinion. And let's now talk about the performance, because once again, I could not tell a massive difference between this and newer iPhone models. I've had zero issues, it still runs like a champ, and for most people's needs, A15 is a very powerful chipset even today, and 4GB of RAM has been perfectly fine for multitasking. Even if you were to push this and play some cheeky COD Mobile, you should find the performance here plenty good enough. And I really can't remember the last time I found a modern iPhone slow. Now yes, this technically has one fewer GPU core compared to iPhone 13 Pro, but I've tested both of these in the past and there's really no difference when it comes to regular usage. I know the Geekbench numbers show a difference, but that's just some numbers on a screen, and it really does not mean much in the real world, so yes, don't feel like you have to get the 13 Pro for the 5-core GPU. The 13 Pro also has 6GB of RAM instead of 4, and if you're also wondering if that extra GPU core and the additional RAM is going to allow the 13 Pro to get longer support, I highly doubt that, to be honest. Remember, the iPhone 8 Plus and the 10 had more RAM compared to the iPhone 8, but they all lost support at the same time, so expect iPhone 13 and 13 Pro to lose support at the same time regardless of the performance differences. You should still see another 3 or 4 years of updates on both, so yes, they're still plenty fast. Cameras here overall are pretty solid. The 12MP main can still produce very impressive shots, and while Smart HDR4 can tend to overprocess images, it's still a very reliable shooter on the whole. What really lets this phone down, however, are two things. Number one, you're pretty restricted when it comes to zoom on this, so the 2x crop you get on newer iPhones is something I do miss. And also, the ultra-wide is very soft and lacks macro support, but do remember that this is the exact same con the iPhone 15 has, so I can forgive this shortcoming on the 13 because it's a much cheaper device. Night mode also works excellently on this phone, and cinematic mode is quite a fun feature where it adds a blur to the background of videos. I do enjoy using this, though do remember with the 13 series, you can't record 4K cinematic modes. Portrait mode works well as one expects, and photographic styles was something that was introduced with the iPhone 13, but if I'm being honest guys, I rarely use this. It's basically fancy filters I don't really need. But hey, it's there if you really want it. Video is also excellent, and while the selfie camera does lack autofocus, it's still a decent sensor that does produce respectable shots, and ultimately guys, I can't complain about what I'm getting here considering this is such an affordable iPhone now. You likely won't find an Android device at this kind of price that does so many things well camera-wise. And I know pixels are a thing, but their strength is with photos, but the iPhone has a major upper hand video-wise. Face ID has been super fast on this, much like it is on other iPhones, and the mics and speakers are also excellent, and here's a sample for you guys. And here's a quick mic test on the iPhone 13, let me know how this sounds. Connectivity wise, we have Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5, which are basically the specs you would expect with a modern iPhone, and I've had no issues in this department. And actually one big upgrade with the iPhone 13 compared to the 12 was the much more efficient modems, and so coupled with a physically larger battery, the endurance on this is definitely one of the best things about this phone. And let's actually talk about battery life. So I've not tested this as extensively as the iPhone 15 and 14, but do remember all three phones share pretty similar endurance on the whole, so do expect 7 to 8 hours of screen on time with a brand new battery inside. Of course, if you're buying used or you're going for a third-party refurbished device, battery health may vary, so of course inquire about that before buying. If you're worried about battery health and definitely want a new battery inside, then you should definitely go for a new phone or get one via Apple Refurbished. That's basically how I got this phone. I actually got this for my brother and the condition is pristine. It's basically brand new, so yes, I highly recommend shopping Apple Refurbished. Also, another small thing I want to mention is the fact this has Lightning, not USB-C like newer iPhones. But honestly, this could be a positive to some, not gonna lie. And yes, you're probably wondering, how is this ancient port a positive? Well, I did see comments on my previous iPhone 15 videos saying that USB-C isn't actually an upgrade for those consumers who already have a plethora of Lightning cables and also Lightning accessories, which is a fair point, I can't lie. Techies might want USB-C all the things, but regular consumers likely want to continue using the charger they have right now, so that's another reason to consider the iPhone 13 instead. So at this point, I think I've made it pretty clear that yes, you should still buy the iPhone 13. It's an incredible buy even today, and it's a no-brainer purchase for those who don't need the island or some of the newer camera features the 15 offers. And so yeah, save the $200 and go with the 13 instead, because it gives you the core essentials of a smartphone experience at a price that's very reasonable. As I said earlier, you can find it for cheaper if you're willing to gamble with the used market, or of course shop on third-party refurbished sites. In fact, Amazon Renewed has it for pretty cheap, I'll leave some links below to that. But honestly guys, even at the retail price Apple and other retailers sell it for brand new, this is a great buy. And if you're based in the US, this generation of iPhone was the last model to offer a physical SIM card slot, which in my opinion is another advantage this older iPhone has. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.